Hey everyone, welcome to the live. I know a lot of you have been asking me on messages or whatnot when we're going to be doing a live on the new RAP plan, on the new student loan repayment plan, the Big Beautiful Bill Act. Now that it's finally finalized, and well, that's what we're doing today. Talking about all things having to do with RAP repayment, the new standard repayment plans that are coming out. Basically, today's live is all about for everybody because this is going to impact you if you're a student, if you're a future student, if you are going to go on loan forgiveness, if you want to pay off your loans. There's something for everybody that we're going to be talking about on today's live. So a big one today. And I know you guys got a lot of questions about what's coming down the pike as well as some bills. And I'm going to throw out there some curveballs to you guys too that you probably didn't expect. Okay. Like in terms of dates, like what does it mean? Like, I have to be in this by July 1st, 2028. So I have time. Maybe not. So let's jump into it. Before we do, a couple things that I wanted to take care of because I have over here and over here some notes. So I'm going to be bouncing back and forth between screens. I do have the chat box open. So if you guys have questions, I can answer them. Now, I can't go into personal details. We are a fiduciary, so we have compliance issues of what I can and can't talk about on YouTube. However, I will put this link in the chat box right now, July 17th. And I'll put this in the description too of the video if you guys are looking for this after this live. July 17th at 7 o'clock Central Time, we are going to be doing a webinar. And on that webinar, I will be going deeper dive into really deep situations so that way you can understand, like, personally, what do I do? And I'm going to go through in some examples of like, if you have this much in loans versus this much in income, this is how you can compare IBR, old IBR, RAP, all these different things. So if you guys get a minute, you want to sign up for that, I put the webinar link in the chat. With that being said, let's jump into it. Again, as always, one other thing, housekeeping item. We always talk about stuff that affect young professionals when it comes to money. So if you guys get a chance, be sure to subscribe to the channel. So that way we can keep making these videos and keeping you guys up to date on everything that you need to know. Like I said, we're going to talk about everything today. RAP plan. How does it affect student loan forgiveness? How does it affect payoff strategies? What's going to happen if you're in school, out of school? That said, let's jump into it. All right. Key features of RAP. Some of these have changed a little bit since the last time we jumped on the live. Some of them are the same. But I want to go through the key features. So that way you guys hear it over and over again so you know exactly how these things work. Okay. So first of all, you can use the new RAP plan for both loan forgiveness and payoff strategies. Okay, I'm going to primarily talk about loan forgiveness first versus payoff strategy, but let's just talk about the way these things typically work. Okay, they are different than IBR because IBR has a set percentage of your income that is your monthly payment. So like on new IBR, it's 10% of your income, period. That's the 10%. It's the same across the board. This changes that. Okay, so the way they do it now is it's based on brackets. So like if you are between $50,000 and $60,000 of income, it's 5% of your income. So what you do, like, let's just say you make 55 grand a year, you multiply that by 5%. Actually, it's not per year. Deeper dive, it's adjusted gross income. Okay, that's an accounting term. It's after deductions, all this type of stuff. Anyways, let's just say you have $55,000 in AGI is what it's called. You just take 55,000, multiply it by 5%, and that is an annual payment. So you then divide that by 12. That's your monthly payment. Okay. Every income bracket goes up. So $60,000 to $70,000 is 6%, 70 to 80, 7%. And then at 100,000, it goes to 10%, and that's what it caps out at is 10%. So it's tiered as your income goes up. So that's a major feature that's different. The other thing is that there's no interest accrual. So like if I graduate and I have $130,000 in student loan debt, my balance won't go up, like unless I'm like in default or not paying my loans. Like that's a different story. But if I'm in repayment, like if I'm on an income-based repayment plan, right now the interest I don't pay makes my loan balance go up. That doesn't happen anymore. Okay, so every month my interest gets forgiven. So if like my interest on my loans are $900, but my monthly payment's $400, that $500 of interest that I'm not paying gets thrown out the door. Okay, I don't have to pay it anymore. Not only that, but now there is going to be a government match. Okay. So in my example that I just gave you, where my interest is $900, my payments are $400 a month, that $500 is going to be thrown out the window. I don't have to pay it. There's an interest subsidy. And on top of that, the government is going to match of my $400 payment. They're going to match up to $50 to reduce the principal of my loan. So even though I'm not paying any principal myself, the government reduces my loan by $50 a month automatically. Okay. And that's a huge thing because that can help for loan forgiveness, but also if you're paying off your loans, like we've already had people start to reach out to me and be like, hey, like what happens if I'm in that situation where my interest is $900, my payments are $400, they forgive the interest, I get the $50 match, and then I make a prepayment on top of that. Can I do that? Theoretically, yes. How the mechanics are going to work on that right now, we don't know 100%. But literally, if you were doing that versus a standard plan, that would save you, in that my example, $6,000 in interest in that year. Okay. So the reason why this stuff is so important to understand, especially if you're paying off your loans, is are you going to be able to take advantage of that? Should you refinance your student loans? These are all things that you're going to have to get help on. Hopefully you come to FitBucks to get help, but that's what we're going to have to make the decision on. Like you might want to take advantage of that for a year or two with the interest forgiveness and the $50 payment from the government for you versus refinancing. We don't know yet. We're going to have to take a look into that. So when I said earlier, like these new repayment plans could be a very big benefit for people that are paying off their loans, that's what I was referring to, is that you can potentially save a ton of money. Okay. Now, where these things are not very good at is for loan forgiveness. Instead of it being 20 years like new IBR is, it's 30 years. So it's like 10 extra years of payments. Okay. So on these, a lot of times what we've seen mathematically so far is that monthly payments are slightly lower for people, but in the long run, it could be way more expensive because it's 30 years versus 20. Okay. The other thing too, and I want to reemphasize this because at one point this was taken out, now it's put back in. So if you haven't been staying up to date on this, if you're married on the new wrap plan, you can file separately. It's only based on your income. Okay. One last thing, I saw that we had a question, so I'm going to dive into that. But one last thing I want to touch on this that's majorly different than other the income-based repayment plans is once you're in wrap, you can't switch. So you can't go back to like the standard plan. Okay, like you're in the wrap plan. The reason why that's such a big deal is because in the past we used to have some people refinance part of their loans. Like if you had 7% loans, you might want to refinance just those and then keep the other loans in the federal loans. If you're on wrap, your payment's not going to drop anymore. Okay. And again, this is getting technical and like mathematics and all that type of stuff. And I don't really want to go too deep into math on this live. Like I'm going to probably do that on the webinar. I'll show you guys some mathematical examples. But just know because of this wrap feature, like again, refinancing is not just going to be necessarily cut and dry. You got to have to really look at it and say, hey, what does this do to my monthly payment? You know, if I stay in my federal loans, all that type of stuff, and really compare them side by side. Okay. Because you can't switch out of it. All right. And we're going to talk about the standard plans next because those change too. But let me get to this question. One of them was previously mentioned that with wrap, we could possibly make a prepayment after the minimum payment and interest. Is that still the case? Yeah, that's what I was just talking about. Okay. Again, the mechanics of how to do that, we don't 100% know yet. I hope that it's like the old repay program, because in the old repay program, they used to forgive 50% of the interest. And they would do that on the first business day of every month. And then the second business day or the third business day is when you would go in and make your prepayments. Now with this plan, it's 100% of interest plus a government match. I'm hoping that they plug it in the same way they did with repay. We'll see, because they never really came out with how they're going to do that. We'll see, because Save had a similar feature to it, but with Save, I knew that they weren't going to forgive the interest on it because of what I heard from the people I know at the DOE of how they're going to do they were trying to do the calculation. I'm like, that doesn't work. And sure enough, it didn't work. But with this is a little bit something different. So I think they're going to be able to do it. I think it's going to be done the first business day every month. So great question. We will see what happens. But in theory, yes, absolutely. And you can potentially save a lot of money. Now, if you're just trying to keep it simple, do you go through that? Because there's like this thing called effective interest rates and everything that you got to calculate. Again, this is stuff, if you really dive into it, like, and want to go that deep into it, you can save a lot of money. And at FitBucks, if you want that help, we can help you figure out all that type of information. But again, if you want to keep it simple and you're paying off your loans, we'll see. Okay. But yeah, we'll see how that's done. So good question on that. The new standard plans. Okay. So right now you have your 10-year standard plan, or you can extend the loans out to 25 years. So when you graduate, if you do nothing, you're automatically put on the standard 10-year plan. That's the way it works right now. You're still going to be automatically put on the standard plan if you do nothing, but they're going to be different. Okay. What I mean by different is it's no longer just a 10-year plan or a 25-year plan. It's going to be based on how much money you owe. So like if you owe less than $25,000 when you graduate, you can only use the standard 10-year plan, and that's the one you would be put on. If you owe $25,000 to $50,000, you're automatically put on to the 15-year standard plan. If it's $50,000 to $100,000, you're automatically put on to the 20-year plan. And if it's over $100,000, you're automatically put on to the 25-year plan. And this is where, as a new grad, you got to really be strategic. Okay. Because like, let's just say you owed $100,000 and you're thinking about using that wrap payoff strategy that we just talked about. You might not want to do that, because if you have like 7 or 8 or 9% grad plus loans, then you may want to just refinance those and keep the other like 4% loans from undergrad with the federal government. So if you want to do that, you're going to have to use the standard plan, and you got to do it strategically. You got to go on to the 25-year standard plan, and then you have to refinance those higher interest rate loans. So that way the repayments on, or the payment on both drop. So again, I'm getting into semantics on this and like details on this. The main reason why I want to do that is because there is some really big opportunities for you guys to save a lot of money on paying off your loans on these, but you got to be strategic about it. Okay. And you got to be able to say, when do I do what? Do I do this first and then this second and then this, and go about it that way, especially if you're going to be a new grad and just starting repayment after July 1st of next year, which I'll touch on in that minute, why that's important in a minute. But just know it's a little bit more complicated than just throwing it out there and just being like, hey, I'm going to do this, because that's what a lot of people did before. And it was costly before if you did that and then switched. Now it can be very costly because you can't switch. Okay. So that's the new standard plan. I'm going to go through some dates coming up next, because this affects, again, people that are in repayment. It's going to affect people that are in school, and it's going to affect people that are future students as well. But I did get another question. Is RAP a good idea for high income earners greater than $100,000 per year, high debt? Also, is it worse for married filing jointly versus separately? Again, I can go through some generalities, and I'm going to show you guys this on the webinar on the 17th. I'm going to go through some numbers just to show you guys some generalities and numbers. RAP, is it a good idea? It depends on what you're using it for. If you're using it for loan forgiveness, then you have to sit there and say, hey, like if I make 100,000 plus a year, and what's that debt that I owe? From what we're seeing in the early numbers, like in order for forgiveness to make sense, you got to be like a 2-to-1 ratio, like 2.5. Like that means if I make $100,000, I owe over $200,000 to stay on forgiveness for 30 years. That's a long time. Now, if you're going public service loan forgiveness, that's a different story, because loans are going to be forgiven in 10 years, right? So RAP is actually better for a lot of people because the monthly payment is lower. If you compare this to IBR, a lot of times up until about 120 grand, 110 grand in income, the monthly payment's actually lower underneath RAP than it is for IBR in a lot of cases. But even when you get up to like 200 grand in salary, their payment is only maybe, between $20 and $100 a month difference versus IBR. So there's not that big of a difference on the monthly payment. It's really that last 10 years. It's 10 years longer than new IBR. So to continue answering the question though about like, is it worse for married filing jointly versus married filing separately? Again, it just depends on the situation. For some people that are married and both spouses have student loan debt, it doesn't matter if you file separately. On this, again, like if there's a distortion there, like I have a lot of debt, my spouse doesn't, married filing separately is probably going to benefit you if you're going for loan forgiveness the same way it does now. Like, so that doesn't change between this and IBR. It's very similar. Again, the big change is the term, the 30-year term versus the 20 or 25-year term. Okay. Now, I want to go through dates because dates are extremely important. Okay. First of all, I'm going to start if you're already in repayment. The law says you have to transition by July 1st, 2028. Okay. So when we came out and we let people know that, I want to say it was like last week, last Wednesday, Tuesday, sometime like that, we put some stuff out on social media about that and people misinterpreted it. Okay. They thought, oh, well, I'm on pay as you earn right now, or I'm on save forbearance. Like I don't have to do anything until July 1st, 2028. And I could just sit here and do nothing and I'll be good. That's not what that says. Okay. The law says the Department of Education has to have everybody switched by July 1st, 2028. Okay. That means that they can determine when to do it. So the DOE and the administration can come out 6 months from now and say, we're switching everybody now, period. You have to make your decision because the law just says they have to do it by July 1st, 2028, meaning the government has to do it by that date. Okay. Now, what's the reality? This is nothing in concrete. Like this is just us speculating at this point. We think like if you're in save forbearance, we think that sometime over the next 6 to 9 months that it's going to be gone at the latest a year from now. So like July of next year, you're not going to be in save forbearance anymore. Okay. If you're in pay as you earn and you have to like switch into IBR, we're thinking that's going to be along the same timeline. Okay. Now with save forbearance, might actually be earlier. I mean, what happens? Like I know next August is when Save has its next court date. I mean, the administration can say, look, save forbearance, the Biden administration set it for the end in October or November. That's it. Like there is no more save forbearance after October, November of this year. Make your choice. Like, so I'd anticipate it being then. Bottom line is there's no really any reason to wait. You know that what your two choices are, IBR or old IBR. Okay. What do I mean by that? They changed the definition so that way more people can get onto new IBR. So basically, if you had no outstanding federal loans prior to the July 1st, 2014, you can get on new IBR and transition into that. And that's a program that's 20 years long. That's 10% of your income. It's the same thing as pay as you earn. So like if you're on pay as you earn or you're on save or whatnot, like there's really no reason to wait. You can get on the new IBR and you're good. You don't have to worry about any of this garbage anymore. You're just making your payments and you're done. Okay. Again, some people will ask like, should I get off of save forbearance? Like at this point, it's like one of those things where if you really needed the money to save for something in the short run, to stay on it. But reality is like, you might as well start that clock ticking. People have asked me about PSLF too. Like I have like 12 months or 20 months left of going with PSLF. Do you recommend I change or just go for buyback? And I'm like, look, we know what the deal is now. You're going to have to make those payments anyways for buyback. Like, and it's 12 months, just like, not only that, but on a whole nother note, PSLF is going through the rule making negotiation, whatever they call it right now. Okay. So PSLF might change too. It's like, you know what? Just get the clock going. Like, why are we waiting? Like, let's go. Start making this part of your life now. Like, you don't have to wait. Okay. So that's new IBR. Old IBR is for anybody that had loans prior to July 1st, 2014. You're on old IBR. Old IBR is 25 years and it is 15% of your income. And so if you're on old IBR, you're gonna have to really look at it and say, hey, look, do I go old IBR or wrap and just pay the extra 5 years? It's going to be a really big decision for you. Because there is a big difference between 15 and 10% of your income. Okay. So again, if you're in repayment right now and you're already on pay as you earn, I would switch over to IBR. You have nothing to wait for, like switch now. Okay. I already mentioned you guys again. I'm going back and forth between different screens or like bullet point stuff. Again, wrap for the majority of people will lower your monthly payment slightly, just based on early numbers. Oh, that's the big one too, is people have asked me, well, like if I want to go on new IBR, can I consolidate, blah, blah, blah. Do not consolidate your loans. Once you do that, you're stuck. like you're starting over your repayment clock. Like, so if you have 5, 6, 7 years of repayment and you consolidate, you start back over at 0. Okay. So don't do that. Okay. And again, I did get some other questions from you guys too about some personal questions, like, because I'm looking at some of my Facebook comments too, DMs that you guys are watching this on Facebook too. Like if you guys have personal questions, like make sure you sign up for the webinar on July 17th, because I will be going through some mathematical examples so you guys can see some real concrete numbers of how, hey, if I have 200 grand in debt, I make 100 grand a year. What does that look like? What does it look like with married couples? So that way you guys can get a feel for different directions that you can go on. Okay. Now, and I'm going to stay on for some other questions too. And I want to go through stuff for students and future students as well, because that's a massive, massive, massive thing that we've been getting here. And I do have some other questions from you guys that I'll get to in a minute, but I do want to touch on this because I know there's a lot of students on here as well. Okay. A lot of students, you guys are freaking out right now because there's not going to be any more grad plus loans. And it's like, what are we going to do? Because you also saw the caps. Like I can only take out $20,500 a year. My program is way more than that. Because again, there's a lot of graduate students that watch this. Okay. But the good news is if you're already in your program, okay, or you're starting your program before July 1st of 2026. So like, let's just say you're starting in August or September of this year. You're starting a new DPT program, for example. Okay. You are grandfathered in for 3 years until 2029, the old Grad Plus and Stafford programs. Okay. So you could still get $20,500 a year in Stafford loans and unlimited Grad Plus loans for the cost of your education. Okay. So you are locked in. So I know a lot of you have been freaking out. You're like, I'm a year into my program. I got another 2 years. Like, I'm not going to be able to pay for this tuition if it's capped. It's like, you are grandfathered into that old system. Okay. Now, when you graduate, you're not grandfathered into the old repayment programs. You will have to make a decision between RAP and the standard plan. Okay. But to fund your education, you're still underneath the old plan. Now, I know a lot of you come in from our Facebook groups on the student groups that we have. Okay. And a lot of you are thinking about going into some of these programs like your OTD or DPT or PNP or whatever it may be. After July of 2026, July 1st of 2026, if you start your program after that, you are subject to these caps. Okay. The cap is, if your program is considered a graduate program, you can only get $20,500 per year with the max of $100,000 total in all federal debt. That includes your undergrad debt and everything. Okay. For a professional school, is $50,000 annual cap with a maximum lifetime amount of $200,000. That's why a lot of like MDs and like those types of programs have been like scared shitless on this, because they're like, wait, the max we can borrow is $200,000 and $50,000 a year. Like, how am I going to pay for school? Private loans are going to be coming back. Okay. Like, you're going to have to fund some stuff with private loans. I can tell you why that's good. I can tell you why that's bad. We'll see what happens. Okay. Now, here is the bad part. And this part, I don't have a clear answer for you yet. Graduate programs are capped at $20,500 a year. Professional studies are $50,000 annual cap. The bill itself does not define what a graduate versus professional program is. Okay. From the rumblings that I heard and the stuff that I've talked to with some people that are in DC, is that graduate programs, so things like PA, is considered a graduate program. So it's going to have a cap of $20,500 a year. Okay. Programs like DVMs, MD stuff, DPTs, OTDs, those are professional programs. Is something like the MOT considered a professional program? I don't know. And the reason being that I'm saying I don't know is because in order to get grad plus loans in the past, you had to be considered a professional program. MOTs were qualified to get grad plus loans. So I'm assuming they're going to keep those definitions, and like an MOT, SLP, like you should be able to still get grad plus loans. But I'm not 100% sure yet. Okay. So we know some of them are, like your doctorates should be all professional degrees. Just don't know yet. I know some people in the industry, they've been saying, well, like PA, NP, none of those are going to be considered professional schools. They're all going to be graduate schools. So they're capped at $20,500 a year for federal student loans. That's the big one. Again, if you guys aren't subscribed to the channel, subscribe, because those are some of the things that we're going to be following up on those details. And again, we did get some questions. So I'm going to jump into these questions too. Again, one last time, I'll let you guys know if you guys want to go into details on a lot of these different things. I'm going to be doing that webinar on the 17th. Those of you that are on our email list, I'll be sending that out as well, probably this week or next Monday morning. Probably send something out about that webinar too, just as a reminder to sign up for that. So that's a big one. All right, so let's jump into some of these questions. Why didn't they make RAP 25 years versus 30 years? So many pros and cons. Yeah, you're right. Why do they make it 30 years? Because the government wants your money. Those of you guys that have been following this channel for a long time, I always say it's a bipartisan agreement. The government, both parties want your money. And a lot of people are like, well, this is horrible. This is a GOP thing, making it 30 years. Well, the thing is that IBR was 20 years, for example. And then Repay came out. Repay was 25 years. That was Barack Obama that did that for 25 years. Not only that, but on Save, it was 20 years for undergrads, and it was supposed to be 25 years for graduate school. Again, that the government, the Democrats and Republicans, they do that because, as you guys know that follow this channel, they want money, and they know that graduate level students will pay because there's less defaults there. It's something like less than 1% or 3% or something like that default. And married couples don't default either. That's why actually when President Obama came out with Repay, it was 25 years long, and you had to file jointly if you were married. There was no filing jointly versus separately, so your payments were higher. Okay, so I thought that there might have actually going to be doing the same thing on this. And if you guys recall, if you guys watched the live a few weeks ago, the first bill the Senate came out with wasn't going to allow you to file separately. That was a huge thing, and they got such blowback from it that they decided to change it. But that's why they made it 30 years. They want people to pay off their degrees. They want the money essentially, and they know that graduate level students are going to pay for it. So it sucks, but that's the reality of it. And yeah, I mean, that's why they made it 30 years. So the next question was, I thought we could switch if we chose RAP, that we weren't stuck in it forever. This is again where there's some lack of clarity. And the way we are reading it is that once you're on RAP, you cannot go back out of it. And somebody said to me today, like, they think that they actually changed the law. So what happened was that the Senate pushed theirs, the House said that they didn't change it. So I got to go back and see that. But because from our original reading of everything was that you were stuck. Once you're in RAP, you can't go back to a standard plan. And you can go from a standard plan to RAP, but not vice versa. And so we got to dig back through the legal side of it. But that, from our understanding right now, is once you're in RAP, you can't change it back. But again, stay tuned, because we might be correcting that as we're diving through the small fine print details of all this stuff. But that's our understanding of it as of right now. Okay. Why switch from pay as you earn to new IBR right now? Do the old payments from pay as you earn not carry over? So all the payments from pay as you earn and everything else, they all carry over. Okay. That's not the problem. The reason why I said don't wait is because pay as you earn and new IBR are exactly the same thing. And so there is literally, now that we have clarity on this and that we know pay as you earn is going away, it's like, look, we might as well just switch now. You just don't want to deal with the headaches. And the reason why I say that is because any day, even though the government said by July 1st of 2028 is when the government needs to make the switch, like I said at the very beginning, the administration could come out and say in 6 months, everybody's switching. This is when we're implementing this, period. Okay. And then you're going to be dealing with millions and millions of people trying to do everything at the same time. Just get ahead of the game. Switch over to IBR now. Maybe if you have a lower payment right now, you might want to wait for like a few months until you have to recertify it. But between now and the time you have to recertify your income, if you're on pay as you earn, be in that time frame, switch. So like sometime over the next 12 months, because even if you recertified your income like this month, That means you got 12 months until your next one's recertified. When you go to recertify your income, just go ahead and switch it to IBR for new borrowers. There's no reason to wait on that. And by the way, I don't think you can even, you might want to wait right now for like 2 or 3 weeks because I'm sure the servicers are probably crazy busy. But mathematically, numbers wise, there's no disadvantage. It's more of a peace of mind thing. Like I don't have to think about this anymore, which can't be understated. The number one complaint I've gotten from people over the last 5 years is I just want to know what the hell to do at this point. Just tell me what my freaking plan is. Like instead of switching things I'm on forbearance. I'm not in forbearance. Say it's coming out. It's not coming out. There's forgiveness. There's not forgiveness. Like what the hell? Like, for certain this is what it's going to be right now. I like certainty, right? So that's why I was saying that. Okay. If I have federal undergrad loans starting in 2009, would I not qualify for new IBR? That's correct. It would be old IBR. So 15% of your adjusted gross income. Again, in that situation, that is where you might have to turn around and say, hey, like, do I go on to RAP? Does it make sense? And by the way, you can't even apply for RAP yet. By the way, guys, it's not even out yet. Okay, like they just signed the bill on Friday, so don't call the servicer tomorrow and be like, I want to go on RAP. I mentioned to you guys too, like we're building out our calculators and putting them in all RAP into our financial technology, our planning technology. I'm hoping to have it out by the end of this week. It's going to be tough because there's so many things that we got to change inside our algorithms and everything. That it might be early next week or sometime next week. I'm hoping to have it out by the webinar so I can show you guys visually some of that stuff instead of using a PowerPoint, but we'll see. But that is the big thing for a lot of you that graduated. Let's just say you have some loans that you've been paying since 2009. I mean, you're 16 years into this thing. So old IBR would be another 9 years. New IBR is 24 years for you. I'm sorry, 14 years, not 24 years. Sorry, it's been a long day. It's 14 years versus 9 years. Is it worth going in for the extra payment? That's going to have to be a personal decision on that. Okay. Do both new and old IBR both qualify for PSLF? Yes, they do. RAP, old IBR, new IBR, they're income-driven repayment plans. That's what they're classified as. So all income-driven repayment plans qualify for PSLF. Okay, so we're still good there. What is the status of the borrower defense? My school was on the list, and I'm listed as post-class, which is supposed to make a choice by January 2026. Yeah, that's one of those things where it's stay tuned. I know that part. There is some stuff in there in the bill. I have not gotten a chance personally to dive too deep into the borrower defense stuff because my main thing was like, how is this repayment stuff going to be affected? And what do we need to do to get all of our algorithms and calculators and everything up to date with this new RAP plan? So that's what I was having fun doing all weekend. Those of you guys that don't know either, or haven't heard me say this, we're also in the process of building out the first ever AI financial planning technology. So it's like, we're building that tech out, and then this change comes in and it messes up all of our algorithms. So now I'm having to go back and retest all that stuff, retrain all the AI on the new stuff. So it's like, I haven't gotten a chance to dig too deep into the borrower defense stuff on this. I have it on the docket to dive into this week. So yeah, stay tuned on that. Because we will see. So good questions from you guys tonight. Again, just to reiterate, we didn't go too deep into like personal numbers and stuff on this because I'm going to be doing that on the webinar on next week, next Thursday night on the 17th. There will be a replay of that throughout the weekend. We typically let the replays play through the weekend and then we take them down. By the way, somebody asked me why don't we leave replays up all the time? It's because financial stuff changes all the time. So we don't want people going back like a year later to look at replays and then like one thing in there, then laws have changed. And it's like, now somebody's like, well, you said blah, blah, blah. It's like, well, that's like a year ago. Shit changes. Right. So, so make sure you jump on that because I'm going to be jumping through a lot of numbers on that for you guys. But just to reiterate again, like RAP, the big things that I've been getting recently is the dates. Like, oh, I got time. I don't need to change. Well, you might be changing sooner than later. As a current student, don't freak out. You still have access to Grad Plus loans until you graduate. So like if you're in a DPT program or OTD program, NP program, you're still going to be able to get student loans. Okay. I did get a message, I believe this was on Facebook, from a professor. How do I think this is going to change programs? It's going to put a lot of pressure on applications, I think, for a lot of different programs, because funding is going to be more difficult. I think that a lot of private institutions may, get hurt. Your big schools, your big programs, the big names, the Harvards, the USCs, that type of stuff, they're not going to get hurt. But the smaller private schools, I think that they're going to have to drop their tuition prices because a lot of people are not going to be able to afford the private loans, and the private lenders are probably not going to underwrite the loans because private loans are harder to get. So I can see some pressure on tuition prices there. I can see, some of you are going to say, hey, this is a good thing. One, tuition prices dropping. You might say that. But the other one, I know, let it be across the board. I hear this in every profession, DPT, OTD, PA, SLP, that there's just more and more and more and more programs that are opening up, and that they're just flooding markets. It's driving down income and wages for new grads. I think because of this, you might see some type of slowdown in schools, because I just think in general, people are starting to second guess higher education. A lot of people don't know this because they don't push these statistics out. They don't advertise this in the news, but undergrad enrollment this year dropped. It was the first time in years that undergrad enrollment dropped. And it dropped significantly, which eventually is going to bleed into a lower amount of people going into grad school. So even before this change, you're already starting to see people pushing back, saying, well, why am I going to go to college? So I think it's going to change and accelerate some things. I've been saying for years, unless you are in a degree that the profession is gatekept by a license. So think like DPT, like OTD, or just OT. I shouldn't say OTD because there's MOT as well. These professions are gatekept by a license, which says you have to have a college education. I think those professions, people are still going to go to school, but I think you're going to have a lot of people being like, well, why do I need to go to like engineering school? I can code and learn coding on the internet. Like, why do I need to do this? Why do I need to do that? So, and you're starting to see it already with undergrad stuff, just because the price of everything is so high. So, yeah, we'll see. We'll see. If I'm a higher, and this is the entrepreneur side of me, by the way, like if I'm in higher ed right now, I'm starting to think outside the box of what I can do. All you other entrepreneurs out there, I'll give you guys this idea because I can't do all my ideas on my own. I started actually building out a business model where it's a accredited university, but it's all done through AI. So there's an idea for you guys if you want to run with it. I won't get too deep into that business idea. But I can see a lot of that stuff changing. It become just, the way some of these things are delivered. There's classes that every school has that are basically the same across the board. Like they're taught the same. It doesn't matter what school they are. So it's like, can that be replaced? Like, anyways, that's a whole nother conversation. We got some other questions for you guys. Maybe that's another topic for another day. It seems like RAP's biggest strength is that there's no negative amortization. For the guys that don't know what that means, it means the loan balance doesn't grow, basically. But with 5 extra years, are you really saving money? I did do some math on the live. If you guys go back like a month and a half ago when the House rolled out their stuff, I did some math. I don't want you guys to go back to that live. In fact, I'm thinking I need to tell our guys to take it down just because I did that math. Some of those like mathematics on that have changed. But you are correct. Okay. When we start running on, because we have the calculators done, by the way, like I run scenarios all the time. They're just not on our user interfaces yet, but I've been running scenarios now for the last week. And that extra, it's 10 years. So it's 5 years for old IBR, and it's 5 years for old IBR, 10 years longer than new IBR. Those extra years make up a big difference because you got to remember too that you should be making more money when you're older. And so those payments are going to be a lot higher when you're older, right? So you're going to end up paying. And the reality is, for a lot of these scenarios that we're running for RAP, there is no forgiveness. The loans are paid off in 20 to like 28 years in the majority of situations. And the reason why that we're seeing this difference, because if you got to think about this, right? Like if you're in old IBR, there's interest accrual. So your loan balance is growing. Same thing with new IBR. Your loan balance is growing. So even in year like 18, 19, 20, if your income's growing, yes, your payments are higher, but your balance has grown. So now you're just basically paying the interest. And so you're going to get something forgiven. On these, your loan balance never grows. It stays flat. And you also get the $50 subsidy. So every month, your balance is actually slightly decreasing. Meanwhile, as your income's going up, your payments are also going up. So at some point, you're going to start hitting the principal with your payment, and you're going to start paying it down faster and faster and faster. So in a lot of these scenarios that we're running, like I ran one this morning, $100,000 in income, $150,000 in student loan debt. Assumption was 3% inflation growth for the next 30 years. The loans were paid off in 20 years in 1 month. Okay, just because of the way the mathematics works, because there's no loan balance growing. And so again, it's a lot of people are like, well, those extra 10 years are going to cost me a lot. But it's sometimes it's negated because you actually end up paying off the loan earlier in 24 or 25 years. So the overall cost is actually somewhat similar. It might be like $10,000 or $20,000 more than new IBR. But again, this is why it's so important to run the mathematics and all these things, is just to say, hey, what is the difference? Because there are some where we ran where it makes like $100,000 difference. And it's like, holy crap, that's a big difference. Okay. So again, we'll show you guys some of those mathematics on that webinar on the 17th. So that's exciting. If you guys want that link, it's up in the chat, again, in the description of the video. If you guys are watching this after the live, I'll put that link. If you guys are on our email list, I'll be sending out an email, I think Monday morning next week, to let you guys know about the webinar. I'll also send out some emails about, some just different bullet points on here and of what's going on with these repayment plans, just to summarize. And we have a series of 3 videos. I'll probably have them out after the webinar, mainly because I want to see what questions you guys have before I actually film the videos. But we're going to put 3 videos out. One's about the actual RAP plan, just the details. Another one is going to be RAP versus IBR, so you can compare the differences between the two, just like the key points. And then the third one is going to be using RAP to actually pay off your loan and going into the details on that. So those videos will probably come out at the end of July, early August. So again, if you're not subscribed to the channel, be sure to subscribe because those are coming out. So I just got a couple messages for you guys. A few of you guys that are FitBucks members was like, so you're telling me I should just schedule a call with with our FitBucks experts? Like, yeah, that's the best way to do it, right? Like, go through your personal numbers, see where your numbers come out at. If you are a FitBucks member, by the way, don't schedule a call yet. We don't have the calculators up on the website yet. Like, we have them internally that we can use, but they're a pain in the ass to use. And actually our experts, I haven't even given them access to them because they have to do it via code, and a lot of them don't know how to look at code. And so I would probably say give us 2 to 4 weeks until it's out. Like I said, I'm hoping to have it out next week, and we'll be emailing everybody once they're out. Like, hey, these calculators are ready to go. The planning technology is up to date. It's all ready to go. So I will definitely be letting you guys know. And if you're not a FitBucks member, join us, fitbucks.com, $18.99 a month. It's basically your financial planner whenever you want us. We're around, manage your money for you. Shameless plug again. So anyways, great jumping on this with you guys. I'm looking forward to the webinar in a few weeks. Great questions from you guys today. And finally, it looks like we're going to have some answers. To me, that's the most exciting news, is we finally know what the hell's going on. Is it the best plan that, like, for the borrower? Probably, the best plan would be I don't have to prepay anything, right? It's not that. Is it the worst plan? No, not at all. There's actually some plans that were far worse that Democrats and Republicans have put out over the last few years, and ideas. So it's kind of like this hit or miss. It's kind of in the middle. It's not the greatest thing. It's not the worst thing, but we know what it is. And that's the best part. And for us in finance, when we know, that means we can plan, which is a good thing. As always, guys, it was great being with you guys. Keep an eye out. Subscribe to the channel. See you guys soon.